Hello everyone, and welcome back to another GIS lecture video. And in this lecture video, I want to wrap up our discussion on georeferencing by showing you an example of georeferencing in real time, talking through what decisions we make, what the results look like, what different pieces mean in a real example. So for this example, I'm using ArcGIS Pro. It is not the only option for doing georeferencing, but it is certainly one of the more industry standard options. And so what I have here, if I zoom to layer, is a PDF map of Farmingdale State College campus. And you'll see that it has the sort of CAD drawing outlines of all of the buildings, all of the parking lots, as well as different labels for various things. And then it has this nice reference over here for what each building does based on the number. And so you can imagine how it might be useful to have these kinds of things in a real georeferenced sense, where this CAD map could be directly overlaid with other information. However, if we zoom out, we keep zooming out, we keep zooming out, you'll see that this is actually not georeferenced, right? It doesn't have a projection, and it was sort of defaulted to 0, 0, which is just off of the coast of Nigeria. And so what I want to do here is I want to take this image, this CAD image of a Farmingdale's campus, and I want to actually georeference it to this ortho image that we have, which is also of Farmingdale's campus. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through the process of how we actually go about doing this. So the first thing we're going to do is make sure that the Farmingdale map.tif is highlighted. Then we're going to go up to the imagery tab up here in the ribbon. And then you're going to see we have the georeference option. So if we click that, you'll see that we get all kinds of options for dealing with georeferencing. The ones that are going to be relevant for us are going to be the control points, both the table and add, and this idea of auto apply. Okay? And so if I click the control point table, you'll see right now it is blank because we have no control points. And you'll see that over here we have a sort of hot tip window that is going to give us real-time accuracy assessment and explain that we're doing a first-order polynomial transformation. This first-order polynomial, or sometimes called affine transformation, is going to restrict us to those 4 transformation primals, right? Scale, skew, translate, and rotate. Again, it basically means that we're not going to bend straight lines. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to, with the control point table open, we're going to start to add control points. So if I click add control point, you'll see here that the cursor is now a crosshair, and it says from point parentheses source. So the way this is going to work is we are always going to start by clicking on the object that we want to do in the unreferenced data first. So I'm going to go back to the Farmingdale PDF map here, and you'll see that I can zoom around a little bit. And if I click add control point, I want to pick good control points. And if you remember, the idea was, what do we want to pick? We wanted to pick things that were not going to move between images. We wanted to pick things that were going to be easy to find in both images. And as a good idea, we wanted to pick things that were close to the ground to avoid that distortion that happened with the height of buildings. So what we want to do, I generally prefer to go with edges or corners of parking lots because they're easy to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in here as far as we can, find a good crisp corner of one of the parking lots, click it. So we're going to do student lot 9. We're going to do that corner. So now we have that point selected in the unreferenced imagery. We now need to right click, zoom to layer, and we need to find it in the referenced imagery. So we're going to zoom in here and find that exact same corner. It's going to be right about there. And you'll see what happened is the first thing that it did, because it has one control point, is it did that translation transformation, right? It moved it from the off the coast of Guyana, moved it, it translated it, right? It didn't change the orientation, the size, or the shape, and it placed it in the appropriate position relative to that point, okay? So now we need to find a second point. Let's see, what's a good second point? Let's see. Again, you want to avoid using corners of buildings. I like parking lot corners. I feel like they're easier to identify. So we're going to go ahead and use this parking lot corner here. So we're going to see we want staff student lot 5. So we're going to zoom out a little bit. We know we want student lot 5. So we want to go over here. This was student lot 5. We want to pick the corner. So if we zoom in, there we go. Student lot corner is going to be right there. Okay. So what you'll see has happened is because it now has 2 points, right? It's trying to do that transformation where it's applying those 3 basic transformations, right? It's skewing, it's stretching, it's translating, and it's scaling. And you'll see now that what we've got is we have it in a pretty good place, right? If I were to zoom into any one of these parking lots, you'll see that it lines up pretty good. We can certainly make it line up better by adding more control points. So I'm actually going to add a couple more. Before I do that though, I need to change the transparency because I accidentally have the transparency up from when I was making the display. There we go. Right. So we have a problem now. We can't actually see the ortho image underneath. One way we can fix that is to increase the transparency. Another way is to simply toggle the visibility on and off. So I'm gonna go that option. I'm gonna toggle transparency on and off. So again, we're still adding control points. So from point source means click on the unprojected data. I'm gonna use this corner of this parking lot right here. I'm going to toggle the visibility off so that I can see. And you can see as I zoom in, right, that it already is having some error, right? Because it thought that that point was supposed to be here. But we know in reality that it should be right here, right? So it's not that big of an error, but you can see that we're starting to get some errors here. Okay, so we now have 3 points, which is the minimum that we would need. But if we turn on the data set, you'll see that if I toggle back and forth, right, there it's still not, especially if we zoom in over here where we don't have a lot of points, right, it's still not perfect. So we can improve the accuracy by adding more control points. So I'm going to zoom in. I think I can probably get this corner here. So I'm going to click this. See, again, this is a good example, right, of picking things that are in both, right? This image right here, right, it shows this corner, but that corner does not exist on the PDF unless it is meant to be, unless that corner, we're going to go on a limb and assume that this corner here is meant to be that corner there. We're going to make that assertion. So I'm going to turn back on the map, so I'm clicking on the location in the unreferenced image. I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to click on the location of it in the actual image. Okay, so we now have 4 points. I would probably do more, but for the sake of our example, I think you get the idea that we're clicking on the location in the unreferenced image, clicking it on the referenced image, clicking in the unreferenced image, clicking in the referenced image, clicking in the unreferenced image, clicking in the referenced image. And if I'm being annoying with that, it's because it's very important that you keep that order, otherwise you're going to cause yourself problems. So what I want to talk about now is the control point table. Right? If you were being observant and watching it as I was going, you would notice that every time I completed a control point, a link got added in the control point table. And so what you'll see here is we have a couple of different things. Source X and source Y, this is the location of the point in the unreferenced image. X map and Y map, these are the location of the point in the referenced image. So this is where it should be, right? This residual X and residual Y, this is the X component of the error. This is the Y component of the error. And then this residual, that's that distance, right? Again, if we go back to that idea of calculating the error, right, that's the distance between where the point should be and where the point ended up, okay? So we get a result for each of the points, right? Each of these points gives us a distance. So hopefully that makes sense with what we've been talking about. The last thing that I want to talk about is this piece up here, this georeferencing up here. This gives us some information. It gives us the type of transformation. Again, we've already covered that we're dealing with those 4: translation, rotation, scale, and skew. It gives us the number of control points. So we have 4 control points. And then it gives us the RMS. So this is the root mean square error, right? That RMSE. The one that you want to look at is this idea of forward. So forward error is going to be the error of the points using the distance in the units of the projection, okay? So I know that there was a lot to that, but basically this is going to be the RMSE that you'd calculate if you took the X's and Y's in the units of the coordinate system. So in this particular case, the coordinate system's unit is feet. So this error is saying that the again, it's not exactly the average because you're doing some squaring and some square rooting here, but interpreted roughly as the average distance, right? It would be 0.303244 feet. Okay. So again, this is the RMSE that we've talked about in terms of assessing accuracy. And this table is going to give you an individual breakdown of where your errors are. Generally speaking, the higher the residual, the farther away the point is from where it should be. And so if you see a point like, for example, this one that is a lot higher than the rest, it might make sense to actually go investigate it. So if I double click it, I'll zoom to it. Okay, there we go. It just took a second to load. Right, and so you'll see that it's saying that this one is slightly more off. And maybe I made a slight mistake in one of my clicks. And if I was really unhappy with the accuracy, I would go through and I might try to fix that. I'm actually pretty happy with this, given I only had 4 control points. So I would actually consider this to be pretty good so far. But again, hopefully you get the point. Click on the unreferenced image first, referenced image second. It'll add a link. Keep doing that until you get a few links going, and then you'll start to see these errors starting to calculate. And as always, if you have any questions, please reach out. Thank you.